So now we're going to switch over to innovation. Jack Webb Heller asks, why don't big companies innovate, and who are the best that do?
Well, my almost answer is the situation is hopeless. The statistical material that's available about long-term big company performance is nothing short of staggering. One of my old McKinsey colleagues, Dick Foster, with a colleague, looked at, I think it was the biggest 1,000 American companies over a 40 or over a 50-year period. Not one of the 1,000 outperformed the stock market. Not one. I mean, as I like to say, you would have thought maybe one just by the law of large numbers, but none. And as he said, when you do the next level of analysis, the longer they've been in the database, the poorer their performance was. And so, you know, it's what is the second law of thermodynamics is at play. I suspect there are enough reasons to sink a ship. Even in the age of the internet, social media, etc., big companies are more bureaucratic than small companies. And things that took you 5 days or 8 days or 9 days to do are now taking you 3 months or 4 months or 5 months. And you know, I think we've seen that with a Microsoft. You know, they have, I don't know what, they have tens and tens of thousands of employees now, and I think they have a lot of clever people, but it's just, there's a monster, it's a monster organization, and when you are lucky enough to make a lot of money doing something, meaning I've been pretty lucky, me or Microsoft, you get conservative. You may not want to get conservative, and you certainly give lip service. You know, you could argue that Apple isn't, and I would argue that Apple's an uninteresting anomaly. And what I mean by uninteresting is so weird that, you know, sometimes when you're doing statistical analysis, you throw the 1% best performers out of the database and the 1% worst performers because it's like they're so far out there that we can't learn from, and we look at the other 98%. But it's natural to you know, to become more conservative. You're guarding your success. You're conservative. You have to deliver the goods on time, so you work with conservative suppliers. You're a big company, and the stock market requires you to grow, so therefore you have to have big customers who are conservative, and you just get trapped in a death spiral. And there are a lot of things that companies try to do, like, you know, hive off individual units and, you know, send them to Timbuktu and, you know, go out of their way to hire interesting people and so on. It's better than nothing. But, you know, the probability of serious innovation coming from big companies over the mid to long term is very, very low. And then it gets even more reduced when they decide that they can't be innovative, so they buy another company. And the cultures almost never fit. I mean, something like less than 15% of the big mergers end up in economic value added.
That's it.
Wow. I will say one thing, because, you know, the comment about that I use in my speeches, and I really do mean it at some level, the situation's hopeless, you might as well try something interesting. Yeah, and there's some truth to that. If you're going downhill, and one other thing I would add is these issues can arise pretty early, and I'm really talking beyond my knowledge here. All the cool people wanted to go to Microsoft 15 or 20 years ago, and then the great exodus began, and they all came down to Silicon Valley and went to work for Google. And my understanding is, and certainly incredible people Google has and so on, that there's at least a little of that starting to happen at Google. They've gotten very big, and there's one of the great design companies, IDEO, and their founder David Kelly is a good friend, and he was a well-trained engineer. Started working at Boeing, and I remember him saying one time, "I realized that if I stayed at Boeing, I would spend the next 40 years of my life working on, you know, 3 feet of the right wing of an airplane, which is honorable, but it's not what I want to do, and that's what happens. If you're at Microsoft, presumably you are working on the 3,785th rendition of PowerPoint or Word or whatever it happens to be. And they're doing new stuff, and I'm not writing them off, but the exciting people want to go to exciting places. Everyone wants to go to Facebook right now. I bet you within 5 years it's not true. And even Apple, I got into a fight on Twitter over the Apple thing because I said 20 years from now they'll be boring. And I think the odds are on my side. I could be wrong, and I would like to be wrong, but Steve Jobs plays a role there that's, he has very great supporting players, but he adds a unique touch to the elixir that I'll be surprised. Tim Cook is great and so on if they can do it again.